Hello and welcome to another episode of Cut to the Chase. I'm Sanya, and today I'm going to be talking about an issue which is highly contentious, often debated, discussed only on social media forums, perhaps outside as well, but there is hardly any discourse and there is no solution oriented approach which is often adopted to solve the particular issue. And that is whether the legal journalism space is riddled with ideological biases, whether it is used to push certain narratives, and whether there is conflict of interest if lawyers appear in courts and then they report from that particular court or report on a subject matter that they have previously worked on or continue to work on. We have with us a lawyer, Mr. Amit Pai, today to discuss this issue. I'm going to give you a short introduction about him. He finished his law from ILS Law College in 2010, and he's enrolled at the Karnataka Bar. He was a law clerk to a judge of the Supreme Court from 2010 to 2012, and he became an advocate on record in 2018. And following which, his practice has been primarily concentrated in the Supreme Court. Hi, Amit. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
I'm going to cut straight to the chase and ask you a question now. I think that the legal journalism space is not really, it's new, but it's relatively new. And of course, I'm sure you're a lawyer, you consume it, if I'm not wrong. So I want to understand from you, what do you think of the space from a general perspective?
Okay, I think I differ with you when you say that legal journalism is new, right? Legal journalism has always been there. I mean, in fact, the Hindu actually carried Keshwanand Bharati very exhaustively and extensively. So it's not that legal journalism is new. What is new is, the social media and legal journalism, right? That's something that is new. And social media is something that is a phenomenon which is more recent, but it's not that cases of importance have not been reported when the internet age was not there, right? Of course, I think any sort of information exchange is always welcome. Any sort of journalism is always welcome. So that there can be no two views about it, because in a free society, unless there's an exchange of ideas, good, bad, you may agree, you may not agree. But unless there's an exchange of ideas, I don't think a society can progress.
So do you think it has been advantageous to you the way more in-depth content is now generated in terms of how these court cases are reported and they are live tweeted on social media? Has it been advantageous to you?
Right. So I'll tell you from a personal perspective, the high-profile cases, what are called as high-profile cases, which are a number of lawyers, and the courtroom is, it becomes stuffy with lawyers, right? And people from in the visitors gallery, etc., where one really can't even step inside in the Supreme Court. And there are a number of cases over the years. I needn't elucidate; everybody knows them. Right? In those cases, when you have live tweeting, right, one really doesn't feel now, at least personally, I may sound very lazy, probably I am lazy, but one really doesn't feel the need of actually going to court, because one is able to sort of get the exact, if I may, for the lack of a better word, scene by scene sort of happenings in the court. So that's how live tweeting helps. But the difficulty with live tweeting is this. Sometimes, there are off-the-cuff remarks. There are certain things that are said in a certain context, in a certain manner, in a certain way, that one just tweets, right? And that spins off into something else, right? I mean, it's nobody's fault. It's just how it is, right? And I don't think that's something that is very healthy, but that's my view, and my view can be different from what somebody else's view is. But it's fantastic the way one is able to keep up with, every day there are new judgments, new sort of new case law, etc. One was never able to be so up to date as one is today. because one is able to see exactly what's happening, and not just in the Supreme Court. Now everybody has started covering almost all high courts, major cases. For example, there was a very interesting case on 375, 376 that came out of the Karnataka High Court yesterday.
Yes.
Right? And probably one would have heard of it, here sitting in Delhi, probably one would have heard of it when it traveled to the Supreme Court, and if it turned out to be a reported judgment 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But within 24 hours, people have read about it, people have formed their opinion about it, people have views about it.
Yes.
And that's something that is remarkable, right? That's something that is remarkable.
So when you say that, of course, some conversations that are going on between the bar and the bench when they are being live tweeted, and they sometimes are off the cuff remarks and they are just posted, and people, take them out of context in a way. So do you think these comments that are posted often are highlighted basis a person's perspective more, or just, let go of basis a person's ideological perspective or whatever narrative they probably want to build?
Right. So it would be naive to say that all of us don't have our own ideological biases, right? Whether it's a judge, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's a layman, everybody has their own biases, right or wrong. I may not agree with your point of view, and you may not agree with my point of view, but the fact is we both have a point of view, right? And definitely the spin that is given. So let me just give you an example. I mean, a hypothetical example. If a judge is angry at something that is being said, especially in politically sensitive cases,
Mm-hmm.
right, or socially sensitive cases, without giving examples, because many of these cases are still going on, right? One may say something, a judge may say something that, is understood in a certain way within the courtroom in the context, right? And if you just take that one line that a judge says, right, and sort of highlight it, it means something else totally.
Right.
And I'd like to give you one example which I was witness to about a decade ago, right? In the 2G bail matters, when the bail matter was going on, the CBI was opposing the bail of certain people who were before the court. Mm-hmm. And the CPI was not opposed. I'm just giving you an example just to understand what, where perhaps one should err on the side of caution. One, as a journalist, I mean, should err on the side of caution. When the CBI was opposing the bail of certain people in the court, in the Supreme Court, and in the trial court, certain people, they were not opposing the bail without naming anybody, right? So it so happened when the arguments in the Supreme, this Sanjay Chandra's judgment, it's quite a famous judgment, when the arguments were concluding in the Supreme Court, one of the judges happened to ask, Mrs. So-and-so, is it correct that you're not opposing certain people's bail? Right? Mm-hmm. In the next morning, and of course he kept it for instructions, just to find out if this is correct and to see what the CBI had to say about this. The next morning, the newspaper read that CBI is wrapped on the knuckles by the court as to why you're not opposing such and such bail. Mm-hmm. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
Right. Because I was witness to this, I can say.
Yeah. I mean, I think also, since, the legal journalism space has always been under the magnifying glass more, because I think more lawyers consume it. And correct. I think lawyers have more in-depth understanding of the laws. So, correct. They kind of magnify every possible news item that they probably were witness to in the court.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
right.
They, kind of relate it with the logic and with the objectivity that they saw it with. So I think that is also one casualty so far as...
Let me also give you one more example, which is more famous. A senior lawyer in the Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid matter said, these maps are so bad, I want to tear them.
Yes.
And the judge said, yes, go ahead and tear them. Right. It was done in absolute, proper, complete humor. It was taken in good humor in the court. There is considerable bonhomie between the bar and the bench.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's in that spirit, because look, when a lawyer is arguing a case before a judge, he's actually in a conversation with a judge. So I am presently in a conversation with you. Somebody who is hearing what we are discussing, is not in the chair that I am in or you are in. So that's always a third person perspective. And now that really spiraled in absolutely something else.
Absolutely.
Say, oh, this, oh, that. I mean, that wasn't how it was.
In fact, I was actually there when this happened. I was reporting on this case as well when this happened. And yeah, I think it was in the stir of the moment, whatever was going on. But of course, you see, when news has to be made, and I think when a case has to be reported on, certain aspects tend to get highlighted. And there is a sense of bias, like you pointed out, nobody can be free of it. Right? Nobody can be free of their thought processes, their ideologies. And that kind of reflects in their work, if I'm not wrong. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. And it need to be journalists. It's true for lawyers, it's true for academicians, it's true for judges. Right? And globally, I'm not just talking about India. Look at the American Supreme Court, for example. Their ideological lines are so starkly drawn.
Yes.
You actually know which judge is going to vote which way in what kind of matter.
Correct.
Right? Which you may not know in India. Right?
Well, that is debatable.
No, what I'm trying to tell you is, you're right, that is debatable. But that's a perception that it is debatable. Right? It can also be saying, some people will say, no, it's absolutely not debatable. You do not know which judge is going to vote. In fact, a scholar had actually done a study about the Indian Supreme Court in the 70s. And he had traced every judge's judgments to his upbringing, his background, etc., etc. Right? In the 70s, I'm not talking about contemporary judges. In the 70s, you knew which judge is going to vote which way or decide which way. And this scholar has actually done a study tracing back each person's upbringing, his background, etc., etc. So, for example, a landowner judge voted in a certain way.
Right.
Right? If somebody from a politically active state voted in another way. And that's how you are, right? Judges are, at the end of the day, human beings. They definitely have their biases.
But then again, when we're looking at legal journalism and when we're looking at reporting of these issues and court proceedings, orders, judgments, of course, you're a lawyer and there is the legal fraternity, which is well acquainted with the law. And they tend to understand that they have to sift, the opinions from what is actually going on in the courts. And they tend to understand, okay, this is probably being said with context. And even if it was reported like that, I have to understand that there was some context to it. But the larger ramifications on the public of something which is reported from, say, a certain bent, what could it really entail? Don't you think there needs to be something in place to kind of sort this out?
So I am against regulating any sort of journalism, except for visiting it with consequences if it goes too far. Now it's debatable what is too far. Right? But because I don't think in at least in the vibrance of the democracy that we are supposed to have been or are or was envisaged, the press was supposed to, at least this is my personal belief, I could be wrong, that the press of any sort was supposed to be shackled in any way. Right? And in fact, I mean, and I'm giving you a general, I'm just generally speaking of the press, and then I'll just come to journalism. Like, only thing is, if the press does something which is, say, defamatory or something that's trying to incite or trying to bring disrepute to the court, etc., at that point of time, it should be visited with consequences. I think that's the same with legal journalism. Now, let's understand what it is that comes out of a court that has actual effect. It is the final order, an operative order that is passed.
Right.
this knock joke that happens between the court, between lawyers on either side, between the judges and the lawyers, etc., that's in its place. That really has no effect. Oh, but this judge said this. Oh, but this lawyer said this. This is good. I mean, it's all right, for a discussion, and it's all right to sort of build your perception about it. But what really matters is ultimately what is said in the judgment or the order, what is operating, and what is to be done, right? I'm afraid the only problem with legal journalism, as I see it, is we tend to pick up one line from a judgment and make it the headline. That particular headline may not be the main part of the judgment, may not be what the judge has held.
Correct.
Sometimes it could even be an argument that a lawyer has made that is misunderstood by the person to be what the judge has held. It's possible.
Correct.
This has happened. So, I don't believe that only legally trained people should be, legal journalists, as you call it. But at the same time, people should, according to me, the biggest freedom that you have is the freedom to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a freedom that you must, I think it's one of the most cherished freedoms. And it's all right to make mistakes. It's all right. According to me, it is, if dissemination of misinformation is also protected by free speech. Right? I'm going to an extreme. But what I'm trying to get to is, it's not necessary for a legally trained or a lawyer to be a legal journalist. What is necessary in journalism throughout, including in that of the courts or matters in the courts, is one must know the impact of what one is putting out.
Absolutely. And I think that, of course, when you say that there's no code as such which says that only lawyers are supposed to be reporting from the courts. Nothing says that there's no code as such. But then again, when you're talking about reporting some very technical matters, so some very important matters where a judgment has come or an order has come, and a person who's not probably a legally trained person is picking up something from the judgment which they are assuming is the say effective part of it, and posting it as a headline, that has such huge public ramifications also. So
that's right.
Where do we really draw the line?
Let me tell you one of the reasons. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Let me tell you one of the reasons why that happens. These judgments which we call, or which are rendered, which we believe are landmark judgments, are of several paragraphs and several pages. And if you ask me, any lawyer will take some time to read, study, analyze, and think. But we are in an era where we want to do everything in the Maggi noodle way, which is 2 minutes.
Yes.
Right? And because we want to pursue everything at that speed, I suppose the quality sometimes sort of is sacrificed.
Offers. Yeah.
Right? And that's where I think people, and I'm talking about even people, and let me tell you, I am also guilty. I am equally guilty, because I also make up my mind. It's very easy when you read something on WhatsApp, or when you read 3 lines, because today nobody wants to read a 500-page judgment. Yeah. If somebody gives you 3 lines, this is held, you say, oh, what a brilliant man this judge is, or what a bad man this judge is. This is how you sort of that's how we all think, right? One is easily sort of influenced by this. But the fact of the matter is, there is a reason why in the earlier days, when people reported, they would wait for the judgment.
Right.
It's important that you read and study the judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's take an example of a judgment which has judgment which has multiple opinions. Right? At best, you can say what the final order is. You cannot say with efficiency, and this is my belief again, with efficiency within a couple of hours what each judge has said and how he has distinguished or how he or she has differentiated. I don't think it's possible humanly, because then what you're doing is something that is mechanical. There is no application of mind. And I personally believe that, especially in journalism, any expression, but primarily in journalism, application of mind is, of utmost importance.
And I think also this age of breaking news, it changes by the minute. So I've been working in this space not for a very
Correct.
long time, but there is constant news coming in, there is constant breaking news coming in, and now even in the courts that happens. So yeah, I understand where you are coming from, where there is so much of competition, and
That's
you
right.
tend to kind of want to break the big landmark case, and you tend to maybe there is some sort of a casualty of, say, the analysis part of it not coming out right.
That's right.
So maybe I get you there. That takes me to the next question of whether a person who is practicing in the courts and who is appearing in a particular court should ideally be reporting from that court. Number one. Okay,
Right.
one more part to it.
Yes, please.
That if I'm suppose preparing a draft petition in a particular subject matter or a particular issue, should I be reporting on that particular issue, regardless of whether I appear in that matter or not?
So let me first say that one can only have a personal opinion on this. Whether one should or one should not, it's frankly nobody else's business. Right? Having said that, I personally believe that if you are appearing for a party or on a legal issue on a certain, you have a certain stand,
Right.
and you report on the larger issue on which you are having a stand, on which you are presumably pecuniarily, gaining pecuniarily, you are bound to have a bias.
Yes.
Right? I think it's only fair you disclose that bias.
Absolutely.
Right? Because to take a certain stand in the court, you're paid as a lawyer.
Correct.
Right? And if you're paid as a lawyer, you must inform, that I am paid to take this stand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only fair to the reader. Right? Because if you don't, because according to me, a reader, the content that a reader is given, he's not going to go and investigate who you are, what stand you have taken, what is right, what is wrong. He's just going to read it and make his own opinion.
Correct.
That's how one functions, right? It's true for newspapers, it's true for sorry.
And I think that this is also coming from the point of view, I mean, that's my personal perspective, of course, of how this could affect the delivery of legal news or any kind of news for that matter. I think recognizing one's biases is also very important. You need to understand, and you need to really be, I don't know if, I mean, it's personal business if they want to disclose it, or if they want to talk about what side their tail turn, so as to speak. Absolutely. But I think it is also very important to at least recognize biases, and perhaps if not regulating journalists or legal journalists, we could probably have training set up for legal journalists where they could, yeah.
Yes. Recognizing biases, you're right. More than recognizing biases, I think we as a people need to be able to live with an opinion that's different from one's own opinion. Right?
Yes.
Of course, like I said, you and I may not agree on 50 things. That doesn't mean we are sworn enemies.
Correct.
Right? And I think one of the best examples of this is the beautiful friendship of Antonin Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I think they differed on every goddamn thing on earth. Right? I mean, pertaining to the law. But they were the best of friends. I don't see why we cannot recognize, just because another has a bias, I cannot, or an opinion that's different from mine, or a slant that's different from my own slant. I cannot see why that should come in between people, which I see very often these days. We are all marked. And, this is more of a general statement, but this is true for legal journalists also, and journalists generally, but legal journalists also. If a particular judge X decides a political matter in a manner Y, right? A and B, who are on different sides of the spectrum, will either will attack the judge or say this judge is the greatest.
Right.
So it's not the judge. Let's discuss about and let me tell you, I must confess, I have been guilty of this in my life. I am guilty of it in the corridors of the courts when I'm sipping coffee. Because I'm as human as the next.
Yeah.
Right. But the ideal situation is let's look at attacking ideas. Let's discuss ideas. If you discuss ideas, I think we are more prone to development. Right, and that's true for journalism also. The way one reports. This is my personal belief. Like I said, I am nobody to moral police a journalist, legal journalist or otherwise.
Yes.
Every journalist must ask himself or herself, is it that I am analyzing the issue? Right? Am I analyzing the issue? Or am I taking a stand?
Right.
So,
that's
of course, the answer to this. Yeah, the answer to this. Correct.
For me too, actually. I think that's quite a perspective to have. It's very important, I think, to segregate both aspects.
Right.
And I think we need to implement that. And I think we should have these conversations, especially now since social media is like on the verge of almost explosion, so as to speak.
Correct.
I think we need to have these conversations and try to get past the differences, so as to speak, and actually come to the issues that are on the table. So yeah, I think it was great having you, Amit. It was wonderful.
Same here.
And I hope to have you again soon.
Most certainly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sanya.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.